Jim Carrey is with us. Welcome.
I just
said it's a pleasure to be sitting across from you, and I'll tell you one of the reasons. In terms of being aware of you, there's a possessiveness about you, and while I don't want to say the possessiveness is the city of Toronto, it certainly is somewhere between Scarborough and the Hayloft, your first professional job, and Yuck Yucks downtown.
Yeah.
But I don't think, Jim, that there's anybody right now in the world of show business who has had to use the right cliche, the kind of meteoric success that you have had, other than perhaps Eddie Murphy. And sitting with him recently and doing an interview with him, what I felt was, well, he was in charge. I say that because I know how important complete artistic control is to you.
Right.
There was still that unique pressure of everybody wanting a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder, while you're commuting, how you're holding on to it.
I'm just staying very close to the things that are important to me.
Which are?
Family, good close friends, things like that. A little while ago, I was getting to the point where I had a million offers. I had offers to do at least 4 different series this year, and they weren't 100% what I wanted, but they were good. They weren't exactly what I wanted, so they were out there, and we were thinking about taking them, but we weren't taking them. We were sitting back waiting for the right thing to come by, and it's an awful feeling. And when you're down there, you have everything but nothing, and you know, doing the same thing every night or every second night to 20 new executives every night is a lot of pressure, and I just found myself becoming hysterical within that realm, you know, that just everybody's in show business and nobody talks about anything else ever, and that can really get on you. So I finally went crazy and I said I have to have 2 weeks off. Took 2 weeks off, came back up, saw my family, you know, listened to my brothers and sisters talk about the gear shifts and and camshafts and all this stuff like this. This stuff I love to hear, you know, because it's not what I do all the time, and I had that for 2 weeks. I went up north. I went camping on a Peter's Lake, it's called, and my brother-in-law built a little shack up there on the lake, and it's the only place around. It's so nice. It just brought me back to earth. And when I went back down to Los Angeles, I went back down there with, God, I love this again. You know, I love this. You know, and I went down there saying that anything I do, I'm going to give 100%. Whereas before the holiday, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore, you know.
I think that's important.
Yeah,
because
you have to keep in touch.
One of the problems, or one of the pitfalls, it would seem, are the number of people who get too far away from home.
Yeah.
And really do lose touch. And if you can hold on to it,
sure.
It's extraordinary.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things you said no to that probably got more press with you saying no thank you than it might have gotten if you'd said yes immediately was saying no to the Johnny Carson show. Yeah. And you waited until you were working, in fact touring, with Rodney Dangerfield, and found out that Rodney Dangerfield not only thought you were right saying no at that particular moment, but that you should get married and settle down.
Well, he asked me if I'd ever been in love. That's the first
Rodney
question
Dangerfield
Rodney
asked you that?
Me. Yeah, we sat in his dressing room and he said, you're pretty good, kid. He looked at me like a dad, you know, like a dad looks at his son and said, ever been in love, you know? And I went, a couple times, you know. He was such a neat guy. He was really good to me. He used to sit backstage in his house coat and slippers and watch me do my show, every show. He never missed a show. And the stagehand said they'd never seen a headliner do anything like that. A star, you know, standing at the side of the stage, and one of the stagehands said he kept elbowing him in the chest, saying, did you see that face? Did you see that face? Look at that. Look what he's doing. Like getting really excited about it and stuff. He was great.
I just think it's extraordinary, having met and interviewed him more than once, that Rodney Dangerfield, who likes to talk about the reality versus the fact, that Rodney Dangerfield wanted to be married, wanted to settle down, he wanted a house with a picket fence, and he wanted a wife and a family, and he did it for something like 14 years.
I can't picture Rodney doing that.
Well, it didn't work.
No.
He went back into show business and has never looked back.
Yeah.
I just think, what interesting advice.
Yeah, he's such a playboy.
Yes,
Really.
he is.
Crazy.
Also, with his new success with Easy Money,
Yeah.
he can really be a playboy.
Yeah.
When we talk about you and the development of your career, I don't doubt for a moment that at the age of 3 you were doing John Wayne, but what I would like to know
No, it was
is,
8.
You were 8?
8
Well, you see,
years.
now the stories are getting better and better. Before they're finished with you, it's going to be
Before I
prenatal.
could talk, I was doing John Wayne before he could talk. See?
Maybe I've got the numbers mixed up, because there was a situation in grade 3 where you found out you were
That's
funny,
right.
involving nuns.
Yeah.
What,
yeah.
what was that?
Well, actually, what had happened was, you know, like every clown in the classroom, when music class comes around and the violins are playing on the record, you know, it's something nobody wants to listen to. So I'm sitting at the back going, you know, mimicking the record, and the teacher called my bluff, and she said, all right, Jim, if you think you can do that like that at the back of the classroom, why don't you get up and do it in front of the whole class? And I got up and I did it, and I did this wacky Three Stooges type of dance, whoop, 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 all over the place, and she was rolling on the ground, and the class went crazy because it was like, he fought the establishment, you know. And,
In grade 3?
yeah, yeah. And I did this. I went crazy all over the classroom, and the teacher loved it. And she said, do you want to do it as Santa Claus in the Christmas assembly? So when we had the Christmas assembly, I came out as Santa Claus doing this Three Stooges dance, and my father was there like he's here today. He was there then. He was sitting there so proud of his son, you know. Somebody reached or leaned over and said to him, is that your son? Does he take lessons? He's so good. He's such a wonderful dancer. And Dad went, it just got so cocky. That,
Just like Rodney
was great.
Dangerfield would years later.
Yeah, yeah. And the nun who was the principal, Sister Mary John, she was rolling on the ground. It's fun to see a nun roll on the ground.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and she had track pants underneath, and that's what was really weird. She was ready to roll. But she came up on the stage afterwards, and she said, well, kids, Jim wants to be a comedian when he grows up. Do you think he can do it? And everybody went, they went crazy, and then I thought, wow, this is it. You know?
When I was offering that quote back to you about the mirror, and the mirror being your best friend,
Yeah.
and without any sense of vanity, but rather a sense of preparation and comfort.
Yeah,
You
it's
talked
a friend.
Yeah, and you talked about seeing on Golden Pond 6 times, and doing Henry Fonda because you believed you knew how that elderly man felt approaching death.
Yeah.
How did you know? How did a young man in his 20s, well, how does the actor know?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Well, he conveyed it so well. I mean, I don't see how you can't, you know.
But I mean, how
feel
did
that.
you interpret
Well,
the feeling?
just
You borrowed it?
the fear. Yeah, it was just I felt the fear in him, and it was a real fear. You know, it wasn't really acting to me. It was a real fear. It looked to me, and it was. And so when I went out of the theater after that, I just felt like that, and I felt like, you know, going home right away, talking to Mom and Dad and things like that, and I went out of there, and I just, you know, I felt like that. Oh God, you know, it's that feeling. It just hit so hard that when I went home and I did that feeling, I conveyed that feeling of the movie to Mom and Dad. They said, "God, you look like him." And I said, "Really?" And I looked in the mirror, and I did look like him, and it was just that strong. It wasn't that I looked in the mirror and tried to manufacture Henry Fonda's face. It was the feeling that made that face.
All right. On that, we will take a commercial break. Be right back with Jim Carrey and more right after this. Jim Carrey's with us. I was just saying to you during the commercial break that the phenomenal thing about you is that you externalize something we believe in our brains we can feel. You know, you go into a situation, and whether it's Henry Fonda or whomever, one feels it, but you can't externalize it. And I said to you, it's almost frightening to observe the speed and accuracy with which you become these people.
Yeah.
And the psychology of it, I mean, it's more than comedy to me. It's a feeling of, I'm not sure. I don't know how to articulate, which is good for you. I mean, why should anybody be able to explain Jim Carrey? That's why you're out there,
Yeah,
because
let's hope they
you
never
are
find
unique.
out. Yeah.
Tell me why you feel the way you do about Dick Van Dyke. Why is he
Because
the special person he is to you?
he personifies a good spirit to me. He's me. He's my dad. He's just such. He's like a glowing ember of goodness in a business full of cynicism. You know, when so many comics are cynical, and the only way to get laughs is to put someone down or tear something apart. To build to get laughs, you know, to honor something to get laughs is really interesting to me, and to create a picture and an illusion is wonderful. You know, the way Dick Van Dyke does mime and things like that. I can watch that show a million times, the same show, the Dick Van Dyke Show. I can watch the same one a million times and never get tired, because he's free. That's what it is. It's total freedom to me.
And then the question becomes, since there are obviously millions of us who share your enthusiasm, why is Dick Van Dyke not working? You know, there's that awful feeling.
Oh, he had his problems with the alcohol and things like
which
that.
he's talked about.
Have been a crutch and stuff, a deterrent in his career, I guess. But
Something else that's unique about you, you know, it's the fact that your parents, your family, has been so supportive all along. I mean, one could think of walking into the kitchen and saying to your mother and father, I think I'm going to be a comedian, and getting smacked. Like, shut up and go to your room.
My mother turned around and went, well, now, better learn how to do Bruce Dern then. You know? But no, I've always had total support of everyone in my family and all my friends. And I really think that's what made me funny instead of that gave me the freedom. And that must have been what happened with Dick Van Dyke, because it was like, I feel free when I get up in front of people, that I could just go, you know, and people are going to like me. They're not going to say, that's stupid, you know? And that's the difference between being a closet comedian and one that is not afraid to come out and rip your shirt off and go, ah, you know? Because my parents, when I was little, when I did something silly, they said, that's funny, not stupid. That's the difference.
Wasn't there also a turning point for you in Los Angeles when you accepted the fact that those people applauding you and telling you you were unique and you were going to be on top, not only liked your impressions, but liked Jim Carrey, the man? Wasn't that a revelation for you, that they liked you?
It was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And I found it hard to believe at first that, you know, people like Alan Burns with the new series and that, who are the top of the business, you know, were really rooting for me and fighting for me. And it still shocks me a bit. It freaks me out to think that everybody believes in me so much and is all behind me. Like I was planning a show with Steve Binder, who did Elvis 68 and all that, and he's wonderful. And we were sitting in his office, and we were planning a show to do for HBO. And I was sitting there, and there was a man who was sitting writing specialty music for me, and him who was talking about $500,000 budgets and things like this. And I sat there with my pad, and I looked around the room. I went, oh, like this, and the songwriter turned to me and he said, what's the matter with you? And I said, I just find this really hard to believe that everybody is going to this trouble for me. And he says, for God's sakes, this is the big time. And then I went, oh yeah, it's possible, you know? This is real.
I find that fascinating, considering it's from the same young man who, after his success at the Hayloft in Scarborough, said, well, that's it, 6 months from now, I'll be on top. Then 2 years later, you say, I look back and think, how big a fool could I have been?
Oh, God, yeah.
But it all seems to be in stages, doesn't it?
It does, and it goes in stages, and the wonderful thing is, anything that doesn't work out, now I sort of have an attitude about that, it's anything that doesn't work out, any show that I might not get, any show that I might do that doesn't turn out well and gets pulled off or something like that, I always think of as this is the way it was supposed to be. That's the way it was supposed to happen. because there's something bigger down the road. There's something better down the road, and this is happening because I'm not ready. Or, you know, and it's always happened that way. I mean, the first time I ever went to Yuck Yucks when I was 15 years old, I went to Church Street, the old Yuck Yucks. It was 2 lanes of a bowling alley. And I went there, and I was not good. I was all right. I mean, I was...
You were 15?
I was 15. I had a white polyester suit on my mom put on me. And I went down there with Dad and got up on stage, and I was doing all right, really, but the owner of the club got on the mic backstage and started going, "Totally boring," and all this stuff. It wasn't hip enough for them. So I was pretty shattered, and I didn't go back for 2 years. And then my father said when I was 17, I started doing little shows here and there again. And he said, "Why don't you go back to Yuck Yucks?" I said, "No way, I don't want to go back there." And he said, "Well, you really, you know, you should get over it. I mean, if you're gonna go into the business and you want to do it seriously, you can't have those barriers, you know." And I went back and I did great, and I became a regular and a headliner, and it built from there. And then when I went down to Los Angeles, the same thing happened. I went to the Comedy Store. I did all right, but not good enough to become a regular. And I became totally discouraged with the Comedy Store. I came back to Toronto like everybody who doesn't do well down there comes back going, "Oh, I hate Los Angeles. It's such a crummy place. Oh, really? You can't raise kids there," and all that stuff. And Comedy Store is a rat race. It's a rat race. But then 2 years later, again, my father, he says to me, "Well, you should try and get into the Comedy Store." And my manager set up a showcase there. I went in and I did well and became a regular there, and everything has happened from there since. It's been incredible, and it always goes in stages like that. So I accept the fact that I fail, you know, because I know that that's the way it's supposed to be.
And now they have to look back in the record book and find out that it was only Robin Williams before Jim Carrey who got the number of exposures, the length of time in LA at the Comedy Store, and had the equivalent kind of success.
Yeah, that's really nice. When people say things like that, I did a show in, it was a showcase for HBO to do the show that I was planning in New York City at Catch a Rising Star, and that was such a great night for me because I hadn't been there in a long time. Again, the same thing. I did fine the time before, but nobody was watching, you see.
Oh, they're watching now, Jim.
They're
As
watching
you
now.
know, they're watching.
Yeah, I went in there the last time, and it was all industry people, and I was dying, nerves. I went down in the basement, and I was going, "Ah," you know, banging my head against the wall and things. And I went up on stage, and after it, I got a standing ovation, and I went, "Whoa, help me. You know, this is too much. I can't believe it." And everybody wanted to meet me after that. And they told me that the only other person that had got a standing ovation there was Robin Williams. And I went, wow.
Not bad.
Yeah.
On that, we will take another break and be right back with Jim Carrey and more right after this. Jim Carrey is with us. We've been talking about success. Success in New York, in Hollywood, a career. I was thinking of you being in New York. I believe it was in New York, at Rodney Dangerfield's, interestingly enough, since you know him so well. And someone yelled out from the audience, "You're not Lenny, but you're money."
Yeah. That was, in fact, that was, I believe that was the owner of the club. I'm not too sure.
What does that mean to you?
It means, to me, it means I'm not trying to tell the people how to live their lives. I'm just having fun, trying to transmit that to the audience and trying to get people to feel that. You know, that's exactly what it means to me. It's just I don't want to impose my attitudes on you, you know, because that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm being a clown, really, through all these people that I do, and myself.
You're being a clown, but you're also being a clown that people want to know. You're also a songwriter. I mean, a man who has been on the road with Linda Ronstadt, Sheena Easton, knows the people in the world of music you do, and the importance of music in your life. In terms of music, I think of the ease, I say this, I believe the ease with which you did Tom Jones, but then you admit that it took you 2.5 years to get Sinatra down. Why He asked unknowingly, did you do Tom Jones so easily, and why 2.5 years to get Sinatra?
I don't know. They all vary. Tom Jones, I guess, because he has so much to grab onto. You know, the movement and the hips and the you know, the face and the pained expressions on his face and things. He has a lot to grab onto, but Sinatra is very subtle. He's got subtleties that you have to get that are very difficult. And plus the fact that I wasn't old enough. My voice hadn't changed enough to do them. I was trying to do Sinatra and I had a very high voice.
I tell you, while we wait for your first movie, Last Train Ride, there you are.
They changed it.
What's it called now?
Gee, I hope I can remember this.
I hope so,
it was
too.
called the Next to Last Train Ride, but now it's called Finders Keepers.
All right.
That's
We'll
right.
see you with Beverly D'Angelo, Lou Gossett, Michael O'Keefe.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we can all celebrate New Year's Eve with you at the Imperial
That's
Room.
right, yeah.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Okay.